What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, aka the track Too Tough to Tame, Bloody in the Black. Either way, one of my most favorite tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series. This will be a night race on Sunday night, September 1st, around 7 p.m. Eastern. And really quick, I just have to mention last week, that was probably the best Daytona race I have seen in quite some time. We were 3 wide, 2 wide, insane wrecks. We had a couple flips, well, one flip, about a half a flip, and just an insane finish, a cool storyline. Harrison Burton winning with his dad in the booth. And just such a wild winner, too. Harrison Burton over Kyle Busch being pushed by Parker Retzlaff. I mean, that just completely describes Daytona. All the junkers from the back came to the front. A lot of them finished high. Just absolutely incredible race. Hopefully you all enjoyed. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here. What's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sundays. This will also be the last live stream of the season with football starting. So if you want to come and say hi for the last time live, I'll still be doing my videos. Probably planning for around an hour or two before the race starts. So come and say hi. Always a good time. And usually I would shout out last week's comment contest winner here, but nobody picked Cody Ware, which again, Daytona. Cody Ware, the highest scoring driver. So if you want to run back this weekend, we're going to go back to the lap sled. So all you got to do is comment down below who you think is going to lead the most laps and how many. And the winner will get a cash prize. If you enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Darlington. Kind of a unique track just because there's not really another track that really exactly plays out how Darlington is, the way it's shaped. It's not a 1.5. It's also not a short track. 1.3 miles in length, kind of egg-shaped, I guess, if you will. And I would say the most similar tracks to Darlington are going to be Homestead when you can rim ride, and it also eats tires, which is exactly how Darlington is, just not as big. And then also Dover, it's a steeper track and it eats tires, just it's smaller at 1 mile. And then Homestead's 1.5. So I guess it's kind of like if they had a baby, but then the concrete just didn't really take over, if that makes any sense. That's what we're going to call Darlington here. And you can also look at the other 1.5 mile tracks we've been at this year. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. But we do have more laps here than we did in the spring, with this being a 500-mile race. 367 laps if you take that by 0.7. Not doing the math in my head, but it is a lot. It's more than a 1.5-mile track, so we're going to need at least 2 dominators, and we could even stretch it to 3 depending on how qualifying works out and the pricing and guys that could potentially dominate, but you're going to want at least 2. And I don't think we have any weather concerns this weekend, but I do want to show you guys the green flag speed sheet just to give you guys an idea of who we should expect to be fast based off their speed rankings at similar tracks, whether it was last year, this year, combination of either. But we look at the intermediate tracks, which we are classifying Darlington as an intermediate this weekend. As you can see, it's usually the same faces almost every single time. It's going to be Hamlin, Larson, as always, and then Byron, Reddick, Truex, Chastain, Bell. If you look at the 2024 overall, which you can weigh in. Once again, Hamlin, Larson, Byron, Truex, Reddick, and it's usually some combination of that. If we're looking at the specific tire combination, which I believe uses Homestead last year. I think there's a Dover race in there and some mixture of 1.5. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I did remember when I was doing it. So this is accurate. But once again, even with the tire combination, it's Hamlin, Larson, and then Ty Gibbs, surprisingly up there. And then Blaney, Truex, Reddick. And then if we look at the overall, the way I want to weight this, we have Hamlin, Larson, once again, Byron, Reddick, Truex, Blaney, and Gibbs. So if we didn't have practice, but I'm assuming we are, but it's always a good extra data to have. But these are the guys you'd expect to be fast. And I believe if you look at the Vegas odds, it does kind of reflect pretty similar to how this list goes. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown, I did mention one thing first. That is, of course, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for that. Also, NFL content coming very soon, which I do it in a very similar fashion to NASCAR. So if you like the NASCAR stuff, you're probably going to like the NFL stuff. You can join the Discord, the optimized ownership projections. I run simulations for the entire slate. Do that for NFL as well. So you want to come in, check it out. You know where to find it. Link can be found down below. And as you all know, I'm a partner of Stochastic, and you can check out the NASCAR Sims tools, which you can upload mine, your own, or the already custom ones set on these site projections, and see which lineups stack up the best in tournaments or which drivers offer the best ROI before the race starts. You want to come in, check it out, and tell them I sent you. Make sure you hit the link down below. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Outlier, the best betting platform out there. You can have all the tools you need for positive EV betting, insights, data, statistics, and much, much more, making betting easier. You can use the link down below in the description or the pinned comment for a free trial. Give it a try, and I know you'll love it. All right, it's the next day, and practice and qualifying just concluded, and I would say there was some surprises for sure. You have Bubba Wallace, Carson Hocevar, and Chase Briscoe as the top 3 drivers in qualifying. I would say no one probably expected that. Bubba Wallace, the least surprising of that bunch, but a little interesting there, but they are surrounded by some pretty elite drivers who would expect to contend to win the race. Practice, I'm not really sure how much I want to put into practice because it just seems all over the place. Ignore Ricky Stenhouse. He wrecked in practice, so he did not get to do a qualifying lap. And since he wrecked early, he didn't get to make a long run. And obviously at Darlington, the longer your run is, the more you're going to fall off. So when you don't do that many laps, yeah, obviously your averages are going to look a bit better. Same with Eric Jones, as you can see, nothing here. These guys have nothing here. Like, yeah, they're going to end up averaging just a little bit better when you're not running as many laps as some other drivers. So that's something to keep in mind. But I mean, of Group A, who is in the yellow, and then Group B is in no shading, Reddick, Larson did look like the top dogs. I thought Denny Hamlin looked really good as well. Didn't look as great in the long run, but again, I'm not really sure how much I want to put into that practice session, so I'm not going to talk about it a ton. Darlington is a driver's track, and the guys that you would expect to perform here usually end up doing so. So we'll start with the 5-figure range and up first, and this is my first rundown through the entire slate with you guys. More polished stuff will be on the Patreon in the live stream tomorrow. But looking at this range, obviously all 4 of these drivers you'd expect to be race-winning contenders: Denny Hamlin, Larson, Reddick, and Byron. If you guys are wondering what bets I have this week, and I actually have like 4 outrights. Not all of them equal up to 1 unit. I think it's less than 3 units total, but I do have Denny Hamlin to win at plus 750, Reddick to win at 700, Reddick to win at plus 750, Byron to win at plus 1200, and then Gibbs to win at plus 1600, which I don't hate any of those as of right now. I wish Denny qualified a little bit better, but I do think all those guys have some pretty strong cars. So we'll see what we can come up with. But anyway, Denny Hamlin up here at $11,000. He'll be starting at 14th, and I do think he's an excellent play here. He's obviously very good at Darlington. He's been great at these types of tracks. Fired off quick in practice, faded off a little bit, but again, I am not going to get too caught up in some of these practice numbers. And if we have the Darlington Next Gen numbers pulled up, is he a winner? No, but is he one of the best dominators and one of the best finishers and one of the drivers with the best average running positions and whatnot? Yes. And starting at 14th, you get a little bit of PD upside. I think there's nothing wrong with Denny. Over on FanDuel, probably going to have more of them over there just because the dominator points aren't going to add up as much, and starting deeper in the field is going to be harder to get dominator points, but he's $1,000 cheaper than the most expensive driver, and you give me more PD with race winning upside. Yeah, love Denny Hamlin over there. Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and William Byron. I feel like we should probably group these guys together because they're all going to offer very similar upside. All these drivers have ran extremely well at Darlington in the past. They're all pretty fast at these larger intermediate, no, I shouldn't say larger, but at these intermediate type tracks, they're all pretty decently quick in practice. So I would really just mix my exposure between them. If I had to pick one projection wise, I think Kyle Larson will end up being the highest for me. He is the most recent winner here for the Southern 500. Earlier in the year, it was, I believe, Brad Keselowski who came in with the win, but Tyler Reddick absolutely dominated that race. So all look like excellent options, but ranking wise, I would say it's probably how they're priced with Larson, Reddick, and William Byron. But if Larson's going to be like the chalkiest of the 3, love pivoting to Reddick and Byron in tournaments. Moving down to the 9K range, we have Brad Keselowski at $9,800. He's starting in 12th, most recent winner here. And Keselowski is really good at managing his tires, so no surprise he is pretty solid at Darlington, where it's a track where it's going to eat up your tires. You can see he has a win here, 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s in 5 races. I'd expect Brad to be contender. Is he going to win the race? I'm not going to rule it out, but I would say he's probably going to be a borderline top 5-ish car throughout the day. Martin Truex Jr., he's starting in 5th. He has been snake bitten at this track. He runs exceptionally well here. He gets a lot of dominator points, as you can see. Here at Darlington, he only trails Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin in the next gen era for laps led at this track. He's also second in fast laps, only behind Tyler Reddick. Martin Truex Jr. runs awesome here. The problem is he just can't finish. I think he has 4 DNFs in 5 races. Only has 1 top 20 finish to show for it, despite overall extremely good numbers. 11.7 average running position, but a 25.8 average finish. So I think he'll be good. It's just a matter of if he can keep it alive. I think he's an excellent tournament play. Starting at 5th, he's also very good at managing his tires, and he should be quick here. And while we would pretty much view him safe for the playoffs, he still needs to get a pretty good run here. Christopher Bell, $9,300. He's starting at 9th. I don't think I'm going to have a ton of Christopher Bell. I'm not going to rule him out just to play some of him, obviously. He is one of the best drivers in the series. But I do think there's other drivers that will probably have a better chance of getting dominator points in this race, like Truex, like Keselowski, Byron, Reddick, Larson, Hamlin, everyone we talked about. I would say he's definitely a step below these guys, so probably I'm not going to have too much Christopher Bell. And Chase Elliott starts 11 spots further back. I feel like they both have very similar finishing position upside. And if you look at how they've ran at Darlington in the next gen era, average finish is pretty much the same. Running position is a little bit worse for Chase Elliott, with 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. Like, I feel like Elliott can pretty much be the same finish-wise as Bell, maybe just a little bit worse. But when you're going to start 11 spots further back and be a little bit cheaper and $2,000 cheaper over on FanDuel, I will just take Chase Elliott in that scenario. Dropping down the AK range, Ryan Blaney, $8,800. Not very good here at Darlington, but he has been getting better. Has strung together a couple top 10 finishes in the next-gen era. Probably not a huge fan of him on the slate. I'd rather play Chase Elliott personally. I'd rather play Joey Logano, who starts many spots further back. And just kind of eyeballing this AK range, he looks like he might just be my least favorite play of the bunch, so I'm probably not going to play that much Blaney. Joey Logano, starting all the way back in 23rd, like him on both sites here. Ford did run pretty well. Stuart Haas did earlier in this season here, and then RFK as well. But Joey Logano specifically at Darlington, been pretty good in the next-gen era. Does have a win when he kind of bodied William Byron out of the way. 2 top 5s, some downer points, and the 4th best average rank position, I believe. Starting all the way back in 23rd, I don't think he's going to be a top 5 contender, but if he can be like 10th, around 10th, I mean, perfectly fine with me. So I don't think Joey's a bad play in cash games, but on FanDuel is very cheap. Busher almost won this race early in the season, got into it with Tyler Reddick at the very end, but he was right there in the mix. I think he's a fine tournament play. Ty Gibbs feels like the same exact play as Chris Busher, but with him starting 3 spots further back, I would prefer him on DraftKings being $200 cheaper, but over on FanDuel, $2,000 more expensive than Chris Busher. I'd probably just rather play Busher over on the blue site. So I guess just if you're on DraftKings, we prefer Gibbs. On FanDuel, I would say Busher because upside is pretty similar, I would say. Ross Chastain, cheap on DraftKings, cheap on FanDuel. He's starting in 22nd. This has been a good track for him in the next-gen era. Does have a couple of wrecks here, which has kind of muddied the numbers a little bit, but he has been a dominator in the past. He does have the 3rd most fast laps as well. So starting in 22nd, I will definitely take some stabs on Ross Chastain. I could see him being pretty chalky too at that price point. Going down to the 7K range, Kyle Busch, I got to give him respect for not wrecking Harrison Burton. I think a lot of people would have done that in that scenario, especially Austin Dillon, his teammate, but clean racer. And I guess we'll give him some respect for that, but pretty cheap on DraftKings, $7,800, cheap on FanDuel as well. He runs pretty good here at Darlington, but again, it's just been really tough to trust this A car because more often than not, they just don't end up working out. I'm not going to rule him out though. I think he's like a slightly worse play compared to Ross Chastain, and they know they really have to fight for the playoffs here. So it's got some extra added motivation, but the same can be said for a lot of drivers. Just because someone wants to win and needs to win doesn't mean they are going to win. You have to keep that in mind. So he's like probably going to be fringe as far as making the player pool for me. Then we have Bubba Wallace, the pole sitter, at only $7,700, and I think there's a legit chance he could dominate a good portion of stage 1. We've seen him have a lot of speed at intermediates before. I trying to remember off the top of my head what the most recent race was at a intermediate. I can picture it in my head, but I forget the track. Oh, Michigan. Larger track than Darlington, obviously not the same configuration exactly, and obviously the surfaces are much different. But Wallace was extremely fast early on, then obviously got caught up into some issues. But starting on the pole here with clean air, he's starting beside Carson Hocevar, which we would assume Bubba Wallace is going to beat out Carson Hocevar. He's going to have Chase Briscoe in the 2nd row. The main issue here is that we have Kyle Larson also in the 2nd row, and then obviously guys like Reddick, Byron, Truex just sitting there waiting. But if Bubba Wallace can pull away, $7,700 for dominant points for a guy that probably has a chance to finish in the top 8 or potentially win the race. We've seen Bubba win some races like this before. I think Bubba's fine. $7,700 for a cheap dominator. There's a lot of laps in this race, and if you look at the Darlington next-gen numbers, Bubba Wallace has actually been really good. 4 top 10 finishes, which is tied for the most with guys like William Byron and Brett Keselowski. So yeah, I think Bubba Wallace, like tournaments, maybe even cash games, could be pushing it as the pole sitter because I don't think he's going to dominate the entire race. And then if he fades back enough, he could just completely erase those dominator points. But I think he will be strong in this one, so I don't have an issue with it. I guess the only issue I have is that there's also some really good PD plays he's right by. You have Ross Chastain in 22nd, Busch in 17th. Bowman in 27th, who's had some decent runs at Darlington in the past. Eric Jones, incredible here. Obviously in a legacy car, so can't really expect too much, but it was quick early on in practice. So there's definitely risk with Bubba Wallace, but there's also a pretty high ceiling, and if he can lock in 10, 15 dominator points at the beginning of the race, that's going to be enough if he can stay within the top 10, which he typically does here at Darlington. Bowman and Jones, fine PD plays. I'm not going on my way to lock them in, but on both sites, they're pretty cheap, and they have top 15 upside. Chase Briscoe, I will be fading. If Chase Briscoe beats me starting in 3rd, so be it. If he's going to be optimal, he's probably going to have to beat up Bubba Wallace at the beginning of the race and lead some laps, which I think is an unlikely scenario. I would rather play Josh Berry, his teammate, who ran very well here early in the season, starting at 15th. He could be a fine tournament play, as most people will probably flock to Gregson, Eric Jones, Bowman, but Wallace, Kyle Busch in this price range. I would assume Briscoe will be the lowest, and then probably Josh Berry next. And then Noah Gregson, then same equipment as Josh Berry, starting far enough back, double the spots where, yeah, he's fine starting in 29th. Pretty much the same category as Jones or Alex Bowman. You're just mixing and matching those guys for the most part. Austin Cindric's probably a fave for me, starting at 11th. Don't really see too much upside there. Then we have a full-blown 30s here for the qualifying, and then we have Ricky Stenhouse in 36. So I feel like a lot of people are going to be sitting in this 6K range just to fill the rest of your lineup out. So we have Gillen in 33rd. I like that. McDowell in 31st. Suarez in 32nd. SVG in 34th. Yes, all of these guys are going to be playable. You want to pivot, Austin Dillon would be the guy, but I just don't really think it's necessary. We have Stenhouse starting dead last because he got into it in practice, then couldn't make a qualifying lap, so it's not like he earned the 36th place running position. So yeah, Stenhouse is probably my favorite, and then after that, honestly, just kind of flip a coin on Suarez, McDowell, and Todd Gillen. SVG would be my least favorite of that bunch, but plenty of good 6K plays here to round your lineups out with. No chance I touch Hocevar starting in second. If he dominates the race, whatever. I've lost worse ways before. For the joy, no thank you in 19th. Please just try to find some extra money for these 6K guys. There's so much more upside there and a better floor. Justin Haley. I'm not going to rule Justin Haley out just because, for some reason, really good at Darlington. 5-race sample size, 12.6 average finish. The running position, 22nd. So obviously he has been getting lucky. But still, 3 top 10 finishes in 5 races. I think he should run top 20-ish. And he's only $5,700. And if some of these guys just end up getting into issues or they finish 25th and Haley squeaks out a 14th, yeah, I don't mind that in GBPs. Ryan Preece is also in play if you're just looking for a punt. But after that, I don't think I'd play anybody below Ryan Preece. So if you're playing any 5K drivers, Haley and Preece for me. Other than that, I would stick with Stenhouse, Suarez, McDowell, Gilland as your cheap plays. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. We post my NFL video Sunday morning. If you want to come in, check that out. The early look for week 1 in the last live stream of the season will be later on Sundays. If you want to come in and say hi for the last time, I'd love to see you. That being said, that's all I got. I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.